An AAF, Advanced Authoring Format file, or an OMF, Open Media Framework file, are two file types that can transfer all the audio information, tracks, timecode placement, edits, volume info, etc. from the video editing program into Pro Tools. For all our purposes, OMF and AAF files can be treated the same. Going forward in this course, I may say OMF, but I mean both OMF and AAF file types if I say that. Once you have your properly exported AAF or OMF and QuickTime reference movie on hand, it's time to import them into Pro Tools. In this movie, we'll convert the OMF file into a Pro Tools session, and we'll import the reference movie. We'll make sure it's all in sync and ready to go. Getting your OMF or AAF into Pro Tools is quite a simple process. Pro Tools even treats the file the same as it would a Pro Tools session file. You can double-click on the file to open it, or from a Pro Tools session like we have here, you can go to File, Open, and choose the file. We'll choose the castles.aaf file. When you open the AAF file, Pro Tools will prompt you to choose a sample rate and bit depth. You should use what the video source material is already at for your session. The standard here is broadcast wave, 48 kHz, and 16-bit. It then asks you where you would like to save it, and what you want to call it. We'll call it castles_Pro Tools, and we'll save it on our desktop. Next, a session will open, and you're prompted right into the Import Session Data dialog. Let's get familiar with this step, because we'll use import session data frequently in this course. On the top left of the dialog, you have your source properties. This tells you all the information you need to know about the source AAF file you're importing. In this case, the source frame rate is 23.98 frames per second. Below that, you have your audio media options. Some of these options have more ramifications if you're importing from another Pro Tools session, not an AAF, but from another session. Link to source media is a possibility here as an option because on Avid Media Composer systems, it is possible to export the AAF and the media files separately. If you receive your AAF in this format and you don't want to double up on media, you could choose this. Here we'll choose Copy from Source Media, and it will put the audio files in the appropriate audio files folder inside your session folder. Video media options here in this case are grayed out, as we're dealing with our video separately as a video import. Now, assuming timecode was used correctly from the beginning of the sequence in the video edit, you should choose to maintain absolute timecode values on the upper right here. Relative timecode values can be used if, for example, the video sequence was using timecode starting at, say, hour 3, and you don't want all your audio to start way down the timeline. It will start relative to the beginning of your session. You can also customize the start point timecode by mapping to a specific timecode, or alternatively, you can offset everything by a certain amount in the track offset menu. But we'll keep it on maintain absolute timecode values here. SRC stands for sample rate conversion. This is where you could change your source sample rate to a higher or lower rate on import. I try to keep it consistent to the original video media, which is at 48 kHz, so we'll leave that unchecked. Next, you have all your source tracks listed here. If they're highlighted, they'll be imported. You can deselect one or more if you don't want to bring it all in. At the bottom, we have some more options. Because we plan on doing significant audio work in Pro Tools, I think it's best to ignore any rendered effects, clip-based gain, and leave off panning. We can keep the original volume information. You can choose to import all track data or some. I usually grab it all, but you can specify to uncheck certain parameters if you don't want to bring those in. Playlists aren't supported by AAFs, so don't worry about this setting. When you hit OK, everything should come into your Pro Tools session. As you can see, all the tracks came in and the clips are being populated. Now, here's a very handy working technique I swear by. Before going any further, I always make a duplicate of these imported AAF tracks and then I lock them in place. That way we can always be able to come back to reference the original audio that came from the video timeline. Using Shift, select all the audio tracks. Right-click on any one of those tracks and select Duplicate. Now we've got a duplicate of all these tracks. Next, drag a selection around all the clips on the duplicated tracks. Type Command L to lock all these regions in place, and if we zoom in, we'll see a little lock icon on all the clips. Finally, with only the duplicated tracks selected, right-click on one of them and choose Hide and Make Inactive. They'll disappear from view and they won't be using any system resources, but they'll always be here in our track list on the left in case we need them. The next step is to import the video reference file and make sure everything is in sync. Go to File, Import Video, and select the castles.mov file. Pro Tools will ask you if you want to keep the audio file and where to import it. I always take the audio as a reference. It's a good reference of the mix that the video editor was working with. It also gives you another way to check sync against the original in case something slides out. Pro Tools will ask you where to put the audio files, but it defaults to the audio files folder for your current session, so we'll choose this folder. Now let's open the video track to medium size by clicking on the thin ruler strip on the track header. Let's also change the video size. Right-click on the video and make it half size, then we can further size it down by clicking on the bottom right of the window and dragging. We'll place it right over here in the upper right corner of the edit window. Now go into grid mode on the upper left of the edit window. Now let's zoom in on the little 2-pop reference beep, which is a way to check sync. At 59:58 timecode, there should be a little blip that corresponds with a frame of video. As long as this is in sync, then everything came in okay. It looks like it is here. So the 2-pop is a 1-frame long blip on an audio track and a corresponding 1 frame of video that helps us verify sync. Now, I usually change the video display to block view, as the frames view is cool, but it eats up a lot of system usage. Finally, I like to do some color coding. Let's make the AAF import tracks have no color. By selecting these tracks and clicking on the thin color strip, we'll choose None. Then the video and audio reference tracks will make brown. Importing the AAF files to Pro Tools is simple. Once you do a few, it becomes second nature, and you're quickly on your way to shaping up your audio.